I want to take you back to grade 12 dance class. I was on stage performing the final task I'd ever do in school when I glanced down in the audience and saw a group of girls laughing at me. I froze. My whole mind went blank and I ended up running off stage, crying inconsolably. And it wasn't just nerves or stage fright. For 5 years, I was bullied in high school because I was good at performing arts, and those girls hated me for it. Think Mean Girls. So I learned how to survive. And by survive, I mean gift wrap myself to become a version of me that I thought they would accept. Even intentionally diluting my light and doing worse than I was capable of so that I didn't outshine others. But here's what I know to be true. You don't need to gift wrap yourself. You are the gift. What I want to share with you tonight is the story of how I went from a woman addicted to applause and validation of others to the woman who stands before you now. A woman who thrives on a 10-acre permaculture farm. A woman who owns a performing arts academy. And a woman who makes a habit of regularly hanging out the washing naked. I know. See, when you spend most of your life gift wrapping yourself for the benefit of others, you end up losing sight of who you really are. I had no idea who I was. I couldn't even go to a restaurant and order something to eat without asking a waitress what she thought I should have. Crazy. But one thing I did know about myself was that I loved performing arts, and it lit me up. So I decided to become a teacher. And I loved it. But one thing I didn't love was the education system. And it sure as heck didn't love me. Stress, falling into a pit of depression, and terrible health forced me to make the most gut-wrenching decision of my life. I quit, leaving years of hard work, dedication, and students behind. And when school went back the next year and I no longer had to wake up to an alarm, answer to bells, lesson plan, or solve high school teenage dramas, a piece of me felt completely empty. Genuinely, what I wanted to do, here was my grand plan. I was going to sell everything that my husband and I owned and move to Bali. I was hoping that I could find some sort of a spiritual teacher or guru somewhere who could donk me on the head with a stick like Rafiki, tell me the meaning of life and what I was meant to be doing with it. But my husband, who's forever kept me grounded, said, Steph, I'm not willing to throw away everything that we've worked so hard for over the last 10 years of our lives just because you're having some level of a quarter-life crisis. Rude, I know. So I decided I'd become a real estate agent. And at first, I was thriving. I even got accepted into an elite group of entrepreneurs from around Australia, a place where I felt was really beginning to belong again. But that's when life slapped me in the face. At the beginning of a quarterly all-day mastermind, I got taken aside by the personal assistant of the group's leader. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, Steph, you're a virus. Then she got all my things, handed them to me, and told me to leave. I was instantly cut off from the group. I couldn't even contact the group leader to see if he knew what had just happened to me. So devastated, I took an Uber to Sydney Airport where I cried for the next 6 hours straight. I went through every single emotion in the book, but I realized in my misery and wallowing that I only had two choices. I could either get bitter or better. So I decided to get better, and I grabbed a handful of napkins from in front of me and I began to write myself something that I would open in 3 months' time. It would become my victory story of how I turned it all around. And when I landed in Brisbane, I took massive and immediate action. And the first thing I did was strip. After gift wrapping, that is. layer by layer. The first thing to go was the mask and the people pleasing, because I realized that if people didn't like this neatly gift-wrapped perfect version of me, then what the heck was I doing trying to change myself to fit in? The next thing I did, instead of dimming my light, I went directly towards the thing that lit me up the most, at theatre. Even though it was completely illogical to my career as a real estate agent. But here's the kind of magic that Nicole was talking about, the kind of magic that happens when you actually go towards the thing that lights you up. I sold 4 times the amount of properties that I'd ever sold before, for record times and in record prices in just 3 months as a result of going towards that light. Thank you. And lastly, I created a blog where I shared some of the most deeply raw and authentic stories that a past version of me would have been absolutely terrified for the rest of the world to know about. And I discovered that it didn't die. Actually, I got so many words of affirmation and appreciation from other people going, "Thank you so much for sharing that. I really needed to hear that today. I'm so grateful that you said what you said." So, here's where it gets interesting. One of my friends rang me and he said, "Steph, you got to come down to Brisbane and share that story." So, unlike today, I was not polished. I had handwritten notes on a piece of paper and the napkins from the airport. Now, I hadn't read those things at all since I wrote on them. But as I started to speak and started reading from those napkins, you could hear a pin drop in the audience. Because I was standing there as living proof that one bad moment cannot define you unless you let it. I did everything I said I was going to do and more. And as I stood there receiving a standing ovation for being the most genuine, raw, vulnerable, and authentic that I'd ever been in my life, it hit me. This is what happens when we strip off and shine. After all those years of hiding, suppressing, diluting, changing, altering, and trying to fix myself to be some kind of version of me that I felt the world needed me to be, it turned out that's not what the world needed from me at all. The world needed my voice. The world needed my heart. The world needed my truth. The world needed me to be unapologetically me. And that's what it needs from you. It turned out I was more than good enough. I am the gift, and so are you. So I leave you with this. Who would you be if you weren't so busy gift wrapping yourself for others? Maybe it's time to get naked. Good one.